learning is no longer confined to classrooms. The future belongs to those who learn by doing. Internships and apprenticeships bridge the gap between theory and practice, preparing students for real-world challenges. This session will present innovative work-integrated learning models that ensure talent is both knowledgeable and industry-ready. Our panelists for this session are Mr. Febin MF, Head L&T EduTech, Mr. Subbaraman Balasubramanian, Senior Vice President, HCL Technologies Limited, Professor Tom Beckwith, Professor of Skills and Workforce Policy, UK, Mr. Tom Joseph, Director, New Initiative, Jain University, and Mr. Aubrey Aloysius, Co-founder, LoreneMusic.ai. And moderating the session we have Ms. Samina Banu, Founder and CEO, Right Walk Foundation. I invite all the panelists onto the stage. Handing over the session to Ms. Sabina, ma'am, please take over.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Yes, this is the next session. Yes, I'm sure you are participating in many back-to-back sessions. I request for your attention. And I'm Samina Bano, founder and CEO of Right Walk Foundation. You just saw me in the previous panel. Now I'm moderating this very important panel around work-integrated learning models, as in internship and apprenticeship in this Global Skills Summit in Kerala 2025. And we have with us a very interesting and very accomplished panel from different sectors and different countries as well. So welcome all my panelists here. And before I get into the context and the details of this session, I will first give you a brief context around, or I'll first introduce the panelists here. So we have with us Mr. Professor Tom Bewick. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Bewick, okay. He's a professor of skills and workforce policy in the United Kingdom, and he has worked on apprenticeship policies at global level. He has worked in UK and Europe, and has and keeps deep expertise in apprenticeship policies and workforce-related issues. We have with us Mr. Subbaraman Balasubramanian. If you can say hello to everyone or raise your hand so everyone will know who you are. He's Senior Vice President at HCL Technologies, and he works in large-scale early career talent pipelines, and he has programs like Tech B, if I'm correct, that prioritizes skills over degrees. So that would be interesting to talk about. Welcome, Subbaraman. We have Ms. Febin, if I'm again pronouncing correctly, head of L&T EduTech, and she's building academia industry linkages, and she also has hands-on experience with scalable assessments and credit mapping. So welcome, Febin. Then we have Mr. Tom Joseph, another Tom, both of them are sitting together. He's Director of New Initiatives at Jain University, and he works around embedding internship and entrepreneurship in higher education. So another interesting perspective. And we also, do we have Mr. Suresh? Yes. No, we don't have Mr. Suresh. So we have Mr. Aubrey Aloysius, Deputy Director, no, you are CMD of Lorraine Music Academy. So we have creative industry also with us. He is working towards making music knowledge more usable for performance or learning, and he's generating pathways through his LoreneMusicAcademy.ai. So we are LoreneMusic.ai. So now we will have a creative industry lens as well. So please welcome all the panelists here. Thank you very much for joining. So let me give you a context about what this is all about, this panel is all about. So Kerala is at a very interesting juncture. The literacy and academic ecosystem is exceptional, and Kerala can be the leader in the skill revolution of India. However, we are facing challenges in different ways. Aligning education to industry needs, translating classrooms into workplaces, or also solving the problem of inclusivity, especially across urban-rural divides or gender divides. So how do Kerala become a leader in work-integrated learning models, which can be a game changer in solving these gaps between workplace and learning environment or educational spaces? Work-integrated learning models like apprenticeship and internship, we will cover here. Apart from that, there are some other models as well that we will try to cover and see how such work-integrated learning models, what they are, why they are useful, what gaps are they trying to fill, how students get benefited from these models, what's the role of industry, government, and what role can Kerala play in here? This is the flow of conversation. Stay tuned. So let's begin with all our panelists. And in 1 or 2 sentences, if you have to tell why work-integrated learning models like apprenticeship and internship are critical to the skill ecosystem of India, particularly Kerala. We start with Tom.
And while Tom is preparing to speak, may I encourage every one of you standing there, there's a lot of seats here up in front. Can we please request you to pay attention to the talk? If you want to talk among yourselves, please step out and talk, or else please come in and participate in this great panel. Can you hear me? Please come in front. And please be seated. And avoid crosstalks in the auditorium. It'll really help the other participants in enjoying this panel discussion. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for handling this piece.
Thank you very much. Certainly a lot cozier if you move closer to the stage, and it feels like we're having more of a fireside chat with our friends and family here in Kerala. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I think this is now my 4th session here at this excellent Skills Summit, and I'm indeed privileged and delighted to be invited by the Kerala government and KDISC to this really landmark event. And I've sat in, as well as participating in sessions, I've sat in a number of sessions, and it's truly inspiring, I think, the vision, the 6 objectives. So all the support to you and colleagues here in building Kerala as a global talent hub. As you said when you introduced me, I have the pleasure these days of working a lot internationally with several governments and multinationals around the world. I'm on the board of Apprenticeships for America. I work a lot in Europe and indeed in the Middle East. But a good 20 years of my career actually was spent running non-governmental organizations, workforce development organizations, actually creating apprenticeships from scratch. So I have a lot of hands-on practical experience of what makes apprenticeships work. And I always say to audiences that apprenticeships are sold to employers, they're not bought. And let me just unpack what I mean by that briefly. And that is that, if you think about fundamentally what an apprenticeship is, the first thing is it's a paid job. It's not it may involve classroom study, but it's not a study-based program. It's very important. It's a real job, but it's really building on what is a tradition in our human societies that goes back actually in places like the Indus River here in India to 160,000 years ago. Apprenticeship is ultimately about the transfer of knowledge between the master and the novice, and it's about taking not exclusively young people, because one of the things that I increasingly see around the world is apprenticeships, yes, for young people coming out of the upper secondary system. Germany and Switzerland are very famous apprenticeship models for that. But also we see what's called all-age, all-level apprenticeships, people who are reskilling and upskilling through apprenticeships in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and dare I say even in their 50s. We see this in the UK, for example. So it's about ensuring that we have we build a skills ecosystem here in Kerala that captures that 160,000-year-old tradition of the transfer of knowledge, skills, and behaviors from the master to the novice, and taking the novice on that journey to mastery of skills. I think the challenge is, and every country faces this challenge, and by the way, just to put this in perspective, even the world-leading systems in the world like Switzerland and Germany and the Scandinavian countries, and to a lesser extent Australia, UK, and the US, at any one time, the maximum number of people that are in apprenticeship as a percentage of the workforce is around about 3 to 4%. So, for every 100 people in the Kerala workforce, if you were matching international benchmarks, you'd be looking at having 3 or 4 apprentices. I always think when you explain it in that way, it actually doesn't seem like such a daunting challenge, right? Because surely, in a great populous, wonderful country like India, it should be possible to ensure that for every 100 people who are employed, you can get closer to 2, 3, 4 people in apprenticeships. The question that I always get asked by policymakers is how, and this is where I draw, I think, on my experience, nearly 25 years creating apprenticeships from scratch. I think it's really important that you bring employers to the table very early on, and one of the things, and I've sat on other panels talking about the sector skills councils here in India, I think if Kerala could, working with the SSCs, create almost a Kerala version of the sector skills council, albeit affiliated to the national bodies, I think that would help really get that conversation going, because as the previous session was talking about, apprenticeships really is about aligning to the skills needs and the demands that industry has today, but also in the future. And I think it's also important to stress that apprenticeships, yes, they may be about ensuring that people can do the job, but they are a form of education in the workplace. And this is always the balance that countries and skills ecosystems have to get between, if you like, the day-to-day demands of employers and ensuring that the apprentice is equipped with the transferable skills to be able to move not just within occupation or within the industry, but also potentially to move across industries as well. And this is something that's very, very important with the growth of transferable skills in areas like digital and IT. And actually, one of the reasons why I'm very confident that Kerala will continue to be a global leader, and certainly a leader within India, is because one of the ironies, I think, about the march of artificial intelligence and some of the debates that we're having now that I get invited to these expert debates about, is AI destroying jobs, will it create more jobs? Actually, in the end, the foundational skills of literacy and numeracy and oracy, these are the things actually that will never go out of business, because if you have in your workforce through apprenticeships skill sets that are adaptable, that are agile, that really capture those foundational skills so they can be applied in a number of different settings, then clearly you are on to a winner. I'm conscious there are other far more distinguished people to talk than me, but I hope that just sets the scene for why apprenticeships are sold, they're not bought. The challenge for policymakers working with stakeholders is to get out there, make the case, but perhaps in the discussion we can come back to some of the levers that I've seen internationally, like wage subsidy. Sector skills councils have an important role in terms of how we make that happen here on the ground more systemically for Kerala. Thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you, Tom, for setting the context in detail, and the moderator as well. So let me come to the question, and why so important the work integrated learning, especially in the Kerala's perspective. See, our state is very unique, and our education system is very unique. I mean, not just in Kerala. If you take India as a country, and if you compare with the markets or the countries, I mean, Tom has just mentioned even Germany or Australia, even UK. Here, soon after the school, we tend to go to the university. If you take Kerala, we have 500,000 students coming out from the school, 10+2. Out of that, 45%, the 500,000 put together all the 3 boards, state, CBSE and ICSE, close to 500,000. Out of that, 44% we consider and we estimate as the gross enrollment ratio going to the universities. Traditionally, or not just traditionally, I mean, one of the main objectives we used to consider, the objective of the education is try to create employment opportunity or secure a good job soon after the graduation. This has been set as a kind of blanket expectation from any course, from any university, for any student going to the school, college. But the last couple of years, not just couple of years, I mean, we have been talking about, I mean, the gap between education to employment. See, what exactly we are producing out of the universities, out of the colleges, and that are we able to meet the expectation of the employer? This is what I mean, stressing as one of the key issues of the education, the higher education, or especially the university education for India and even any other states, I mean, like Kerala. So the work integrated learning tried to address this from the scratch. That means the students have an opportunity right from the day one. You know, I mean, if you take the apprenticeship model, the so-called apprenticeship model we applied in the UK or in Germany, the students, they start working with the employer from the day one. In Kerala, I mean, we are yet to see that kind of models, but we have created the internship opportunities. In our university, the Jain University, we started a Bachelor's of Vocation course. When we started the BVOC a couple of years back, and we approached NSDC, and BVOC was one of the dying model in India, to be very frank. I mean, this is the same feedback we got from NSDC. Are you crazy to start BVOC? Because most of the universities started Bachelor's of Vocation, finding it difficult to, get students for the vocational model. But we managed to develop that model right from 300 students to 3,000 students studying in our Bachelor's of Vocation model. That model is purely apprenticeship embedded model. The students are getting half of the credit from the workplace, and they start the BVOC right from the year one itself. They start working with employees, and they do, they acquire all the, the required credit and qualification tracks from the workplace itself. But what exactly we are lacking in the state, creating this as a culture. Our culture is set, going to the university, studying all the 3 years or 4 years in a university, and going home is a typical Kerala culture, typical Indian culture. The culture is getting, changed in a couple of other metro cities. But if you take Kerala as a state, we are expecting our kids to go to university, write exam, and come out with a degree after 3 or 4 years. We are not setting it as a culture. This is what we exactly try to address this issue. This is what exactly we need to change to build this work integrated learning, especially embedding apprenticeship and internship. Even our university, even for any normal course, you take any normal bachelor's, undergraduate and postgraduate course, internship is mandatory, and we are making all the necessary steps for the students to acquire the, the credits from the internship and export that credit to the academic degree. This is what we need, to bridge that gap. Then only we can create the, the workforce that is meeting the employee's expectation. This is the real challenge of education. If you take, the real objective education, just to, the one key objective is finding the suitable employment for the graduates coming out. Especially with the private universities, finding it more easy because the disruptions are happening in workplace on a day-to-day basis. You cannot, set your course outcome, the program outcome, your, the kind of the expectation well in advance. The reasons are many. We are talking about the future of jobs, the future jobs. This is something we need to address through the work integrated learning. That we can, take the expectation, the real expectation from the employer, try to, embed as a part of the course from the day one. This is a kind of atmosphere we are creating to create a future workforce from the state. So what we need is a kind of policy from the government to, to make it as a part of the academic degrees, and how do we integrate and create an ecosystem to earn necessary credits. It's a part of large public universities, keeping the private universities aside. And secondly, most importantly, how do we set this as a culture? You are, going to the school or college, to earn a degree along with the necessary practical training, and that is not, something cheap. This is something, creating a standard and create more awareness and more, glamour to this. This is what lacking to the most of the vocational courses. The students are not finding glamour to this course. I think, this is something we need from the government. This is something we need to address as a ecosystem. How do we create more, the tangible benefit to this work integrated learning, and that's all. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for sharing your views. Now we come to Aubrey and share your views about WIL.
Thank you. Thank you for your intervention. Can I just request anyone on the sound console there, if you can avoid the echo that's happening. I don't know about the echo to you. Do you find there's an echo? We can't hear ourselves. Anyone on the sound console, can we do something about the echo? Just reduce this echo so we can have a normal conversation. Maybe just switch off the monitor on the stage, that might help. Yeah.
No, after this got switched off, now I'm hearing two sounds, like one your direct sound and one is the sound of the speaker, and two getting sandwiched with each other,
Correct.
and I'm not able to figure
Correct.
out.
Oh, I'm hearing three. Listen, if there's a sound engineer or someone responsible for the sound there, can you please see that we can rectify this so we can have a good conversation, an enjoyable session? Okay, we'll give it 60 seconds. Yeah, I'm keeping on rambling away just to make sure that we know it's being corrected. We can't even hear ourselves. That's the problem. Okay, let me see if I can draw my mic a little away. Is that clearer? Yes, it is clearer, so maybe that helps. It's something to do with physics, the laws of physics that I learned in school, and the resonance and the sound waves. But no, it's still echoing. See, I'm just simply rambling away, talking about sound waves. Okay, so I'm Aubrey Aloysius. I am in the creative economy today, but that was not true when I started off in life. And I want to talk about my journey in life to make it pertinent to the topic of this session. Work-integrated learning models, internships, and apprenticeships. How fortunate this generation is to have such a session. When I was young, I didn't have this. Let me tell you what I did. I re-engineered my life. I created my own internships. I created my own apprenticeship. At the age of 16, I went and did a job. I did sales. And I now know why sales is the most important task or skill. In the creative economy, we creators love to create excellence through our painting, through our music, through any of our product that we design and we create. With passion. We're very passionate when we create a product of excellence. But then we leave it there. And we think it'll sell on its own. The creative economy, and I'm an ex-international banker. I studied my way through college and worked. I learned while I earned, and I earned while I learned. And I did this from the age of 16. And that's the heart of internships, where you teach yourself the skills and keep yourself ready for life. Now, let me just share this with you. If there are any youngsters here, let me not disappoint you, but let me tell you this hard truth. A graduate certificate does not guarantee you a job. Okay? And in tomorrow's world, a graduation and a post-graduation will not do you good. What will do you good is skills, and the right skills that you'll be able to monetize at the end of your pathway. Here is what I'm trying to say, that internships and apprenticeships are meant to train you for the real world of results. If you're not goal-oriented and result-oriented, there'll be a misfit. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. I speak as an employer. I've employed more than 10,000 people at a time. I speak as a voice of the industry. Everywhere I go, across industries, I hear this complaint. This workforce is not ready for work. Graduates are not trained before they leave their college, and they're not equipped how to fit into the industry. Consequently, there are no jobs. And there's this constant complaint with the employer saying, we can't hire, unhireable candidate. But the solution is this: work-integrated learning models like internships and apprenticeships. And I would say there is a requirement of a mind change and a mind shift in the students themselves. It's an attitude change. Everyone wants an internship and they want a certificate at the end of it. But they're not focusing on the learning process. They're not focusing on the equipment process. And that's a problem that India has. Sorry, Tom, you're hearing some stories about India, but that's the truth. And may I encourage the students of Kerala, the average person who walks into the work economy is roughly the age of 23, 25 after their graduation and post-graduation. I remember my school friend who did his PhD before working. He started working at the age of 29. Hey, that's not the way. Internships start. I started at 16. I created my own internship. The whole problem lies there in the approach. I was a dynamic young man or boy when I grew up, and that's the way I carved my life. I was an entrepreneur in my 30s. I have given employment to, I don't know, close to more than 1 lakh of students as an individual, more than 1 lakh of people. What we need is not just jobs. What we need is entrepreneurship. Startup India, Make in India actually wants, our Honorable Prime Minister and leadership want us to make entrepreneurs. You know who are entrepreneurs? They don't ask for jobs. They look to create jobs and give jobs. That in a nutshell. I'll continue in the next session.
Thank you very much, Aubrey. Can we have Subba Ramanji, your
Sure.
views as well?
Thank you, Sabina. I think very, very pertinent topic for today. And what better, we are tom-tomming our way this afternoon. My views, if you go back to, say, the Taj Mahal, or some of the beautiful temples that our country has had, worldwide, some such structures that exist, great sculptures. You didn't have degrees that he talked about, certificates that he talked about for people to come in and start sculpting. What was required was ability to sculpt, and that took time to get skilled. You had somebody who taught you how to chisel, somebody who's going around chiseling. It's a process, it's a journey. The key here is somebody willing to work together to produce that state of outcome, or to arrive at the state of outcome from where large-scale, fast-tuned production can take place. That process has been there, it's been age-old. Like some of my co-panelists talked about, worldwide this is very prevalent. Talk about automobiles, most of the high-end cars, car manufacturers have this. As an organization, we've also tried to experiment it in our company by way of bringing in interns as apprentices to get into IT jobs, and that's been working very well. The process has to be fine-tuned to the industry, to the sector that you are in. It's not necessarily a singular process. The duration varies because the abilities that are required to get to the point of production vary. What's important also is, as the apprentice gets ready, the ability for the ecosystem to still produce fine-grained output while somebody is learning is the kind of maturity that's required to ensure that the outcome is not qualitatively any inferior is important. So which means you need to have structures in place to oversee kind of a supervisor, metrics around it, etc., to ensure that there's no compromise on quality while the apprentice is still learning. And for industries like us, which are into IT and services, it becomes even more important because the window to learn on the job and perform is very small. How do you deal with it is a nuance by itself, but that's where most of the jobs are heading, right? Services, industries. So it's a fantastic model. I think we can talk about, unsure what else we have that's coming up. I'm happy and open to questions.
Sure, thank you very much, Subba Ramanji. Febin, if you can also share in 1 or 2 sentences, why do you think work integrated learning is important?
So just now we were talking about the echo, right? And we're all saying, can somebody fix it? and we talked about physics. I was just thinking that those are fundamentals, what we all study in school. Actually, some 10 of us should have run there and tried to fix it. But we don't know, right? Certain very, very simple things. I think it all starts there. We have these big initiatives, missions, talks, work integrated apprenticeships, etc. I fully agree that it is very important that the learners or the workforce should know how to do things on their own, and that's a process where they try to do things on their own. Unless we dirty our hands, somebody coming and telling us what it is will not really yield results. While I'm donning the hat of EduTech today, I'm also from the industry, so I was just wondering, I mean, all of you know what Larsen & Toubro does in the country, right? So there is huge opportunities. We need huge number of workforce, but we are not able to match the actual workforce that's coming out of the colleges. And we say that, there is millions of engineers and other discipline graduates and postgraduates that come in, but why are we not able to tie them? So, so L&T itself felt that difference. I mean, the quality workforce that, as he was saying, how do you quickly put them to be productive? It's, I also feel this is a little bit skewed. Today, everybody wants to get into IT and coding, which is very quick, probably, to get to know and be productive. But there are also a lot of other areas where we need to have this, and we need people to be interested there, where they can go and do the hands-on. For example, I'll talk about maybe welding also, or putting up, all the lighting and all this. This is very important for our country as well. So what we started doing is going to colleges from first year, start telling them what the industry is, and that's what we are doing. While it may not be exactly called work integrated, because they'll still be students, but by the time they come to the final semester or so, they should be able to know what they'll do when they go to work. And they'll also be clear. It should not be like, okay, there is an opportunity and I go, but it should be more like what can, like passion that Aubrey talked about. I think that's very important, whatever you do. Even we talked about sculpting, etc. So it's like, first I have to be quality conscious in what I do, and then it all will automatically come. So I think that's the key for work integrated or apprenticeship once they have that attitude.
Thank you very much, Febin. You brought in a very interesting point, the importance of technicians. Like, we are feeling it right here. We needed a sound technician so urgently. So there is no denying of this fact that vocational education institutions and students and apprenticeships are really required. We all have agreed that there is a disconnect between classroom learning and industry expectations. We know that. So Subbaraman, this question is for you. How do you think in today's world integrated learning models in India, like apprenticeship and internship, how are these bridging the gaps between classroom learning and industry expectations, and what more can be done? How can we improve it from your perspective?
Just to paraphrase, you talked about how do we bridge between classroom and industry, and
how good today's apprenticeship and internship are in bridging that? We can't hear each other. I know that's it's more challenging for me because I have to listen to all of you.
Yes.
So how is it bridging the gap today? How effectively it is bridging the gap today, and what more can be done?
Sure. Thank you. So I'll probably talk about the industry I represent, IT services, and how it's working, and what more could be done. In our industry, as you would know, the tech is very fast changing. and customers' expectations change even faster. Those that come into our industry need to acclimatize themselves with the new technology, make sure that they're able to produce high quality output from an IT standpoint and deliver. There are multiple variables. Technology is changing, somebody's got to learn that quickly too. Which means there's got to be somebody to teach that newly emerging or changing technology to whosoever that's coming in. So this model, the way it works, has been working traditionally is like what Fabian was saying. Generally, organizations go into the colleges as early as possible. If it's an engineering college in the 4th year, and sometimes into the 3rd year as well, try and have a few papers that are related to the technology that's coming up. Now, that's still classroom work. There's a finishing school that's required. So what most organizations do is they try and have the finishing school once they become an employee. This model slightly changed to the last semester in the program being spent in the organization. So many organizations have got systems and processes, some leveraging the government programs that exist. Now, this is still a transition from classroom to industry. The structure doesn't necessarily exist that can be replicated in large scale, because in each industry, each sector and each industry, there's a lot of variation. So there's micro level skilling or interning that's required given the nature of technologies. So what we as an organization do is we get them skilled for 3 months at our premises and then bring them onto production. Now this is if assuming you have certain basic abilities, and there's somewhat undoing that's required, because when you come in from an education system which probably has a dated learning, the newer technologies do not necessarily suit you. So there's a little bit of undoing that's required there as well. So undoing process takes time. So this, in my view, has to change, and we have to get better at it. The second thing we've experimented is, why stay here? Why not go back into schools? Because for our industry, we believe we don't necessarily require degrees to perform entry-level jobs. So we've started going to schools. During the introduction, you talked about TechB as a program, right? That program aims to do this. It gets high-performing 12th standard folks into our organization through a 1-year skilling. 6 to 8 months of it, depending on the nature of job, is internship. Hands-on, on the job that she or he is going to be doing. That's the model. Now for this, it's not sufficient that you teach them in a classroom. They got to be performing on the floor. They got to be learning on the floor. This is enabled by the government too, to some extent. So there are certain governmental interventions that come in to facilitate this. Now, what happens is, with this, the depth increases, but the breadth of the learning doesn't necessarily be high. So what we have to do, and we as an organization are doing, is we work with partner universities to provide higher education to enhance their learning. So the likes of IITs and BITS Pilani, etc., are part of our partner group with who these students, these interns, once they become employee with us, can enroll with them for higher education. So what happens is there's a continuum in learning, and the work that they do is also seen as credit outputs for the university. So the real classroom learning that you necessarily have to do normally gets reduced because you're working, and the work itself is considered learning. So that's how the structure is. I think further evolution of the structure, making it fine-tuned, will make this program a success, not just for us as an organization, for the industry, And I'm sure other industries will have their own nuances that they can try and come out with.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Some of the interesting aspects you talked about, how work can also be learning while they can learn while working. So interesting aspects of not just work integrated learning, but also work and academia integrated learning. So very interesting conversation here. Now come to Tom, Professor Tom. You brought in a very interesting aspect about apprenticeship that was a very different lens I heard about today. Like people use apprenticeship for reskilling and upskilling even in the middle of their career. That's not how apprenticeship is seen in India. So you have a view of apprenticeship model in India, and you have seen the world and the global apprenticeship models. Indian models have been derived from the global models. So I want to understand from you, from the academic perspective, what evidence have you seen that apprenticeship really helps in improving employability and employment and wage earning capacity of students, and how that can apply to India in general and Kerala in particular?
As you say, I think the definition of apprenticeship, or the view of apprenticeship amongst different societies, is shifting. So the traditional view, I guess, is that apprenticeships was either for young people, or in some societies we still see the idea that apprenticeships is for the less academically able. But actually what I'm seeing in terms of some of the world-leading models that I'm working with around the world is the breaking down really of this false distinction between applied learning, learning by doing, and the theoretical underpinning that's needed for all sorts of occupations and jobs. You mentioned your time at school doing physics. It's good to see that's still lived on in relation to some comments about, we could have technician apprenticeships here in sound. That's an occupation apprenticeship that I helped create when I was the Chief Executive of the Sector Skills Council in the UK for the creative and cultural industries. But really I want to come back to this point, and it speaks to your question about shifting perceptions of apprenticeship, because in the UK one of the biggest advances, I think, in helping to change the public's mind about apprenticeship, for example, not just being about the practical trades, not just being about young people, is the fact that we have what we call now an all-age, all-levels apprenticeship model. So let me just unpack that briefly. The all-age obviously means that the apprenticeship levy, which is a subsidy that the government uses to fund the off-job training for apprenticeship, that can be accessed whether you're a 16-year-old coming out of compulsory schooling and going into the workforce into an apprenticeship, or you're a 60-year-old. So there's no age barrier on who can do an apprenticeship. So that's a very important way of creating the idea that you're never too old to reskill and upskill. As I pointed out, I've spent many years in the workforce system running an organization. I left university myself with a master's in my early 20s. It's only really in my early 50s that I went back to university and did a PhD in skills and workforce policy. So you're never too old, you know, to retrain. So I think that's a really important principle. I think the other big advance, and not just in the UK, but we're seeing this now in the US, in Germany. In fact, I was helped organize the International Center for the Apprenticeship Degree Conference at Oxford University 2 weeks ago, where we had a global gathering of policymakers and industry leaders who are really pioneering this idea of the apprenticeship degree. So I just want to mention that from the stage, because again, it's about this point of how do we change perceptions? Because historically, in a lot of countries, it's been this idea: you either go into work, you create your opportunity, internship, apprenticeship, or you go through the academic route and you go on to university and you kind of, you know, I mean, I find it still bizarre in the 21st century that we have a model of post-compulsory education that says we need to turn degrees into jobs rather than actually turning our jobs into degrees. And that's why the degree apprenticeship, I think, is a really innovative model, because it also breaks down both the glass ceiling, you know, you can go from entry-level apprenticeship all the way up to bachelor and master level apprenticeships with degree apprenticeships. But I think, in some societies, and England famously has this class system, tried to bring it to India all those years ago. But, it's about also, I think, breaking down those economic barriers. Anyone should be able to do an apprenticeship at any age. The question then is, how do you create the ecosystem to do that? And just briefly, I think it starts with a reform of upper secondary education. When you look at some of the world-leading systems, Switzerland, Germany, they have work experience weeks. There is a culture of employers offering those opportunities for young people. I think there's also a role for wage subsidy, particularly for the youth apprenticeship angle, because by definition, if you're a novice, the employer is not getting the return on their investment straight away. So the role of government can be to subsidize, initially anyway, the wages, which is then an incentive for the employer to take on apprentices. I see that as a very successful model around the world. Thank you.
No, thank you for sharing that. Many insightful ideas for India and apprenticeship for all ages. I mean, I will take that away from this conversation. Next, I would move to Febin. So, from L&T EduTech's perspective, what are the critical success factors for academia-industry linkage, and how can we ensure that work-integrated learning reaches women and rural learners?
So, from L&T EduTech, when we connected with colleges or universities, we found many of the times the curriculum that's there in the university, it's actually not really up to what the industry needs today. So, people like us, so while it is EduTech, we're, as I said, coming from the industry, there are a lot of interesting things that happens in the industry, and we are ready to open these immersive learning for the students. So the linkage as such should be that whatever is being taught in the university should directly be linked to what the industry wants. Many a times that doesn't happen, and it's just the hype that's there, and probably a lack of understanding, or as I said, it may be like there is not proper conversations that might happen across. Like, while there are universities that are very futuristically thinking about what can be done for our country, but there are also gaps wherein a lot of bureaucracies set in, and actually, to be honestly speaking, the curriculum is totally not up to what we want. And there are a lot of government initiatives that have come up. The new education policy, or the national education policy that we are talking about, gives a lot of flexibility. So, of course, I'm not getting into the government policies or so, but there are a lot of things that we can link. And what I'm finding is in Kerala as such, there are a lot of platforms that has come up. We've studied, I think, what European and Canada models are. But at the same time, personally, I find that it's not consolidated, even at the national level. If you see the industry, what they need, and the academia linkage, there are a lot of talk going on in terms of this gap persists, still it persists, but in terms of the demand supply, there still is a lot of things to be done. I think the one thing that we should do is do away with a lot of other factors, but can we consolidate everything industry-wise, pick up the institutions, ensure that entire student community or the future workforce is aligned to that. So we have Gati Shakti coming up. We have so much of Viksit Bharat we are talking about. I'm not using the political words, but what I'm saying is it's mostly for our country that we need to go there. But I find there is a gap in consolidation. So, when we go to universities and say, hey, pick up this batch, and I'm going to specialize them in metro construction, say, or I'm going to specialize them in AI, say. So then what happens when they come out, they know what they're supposed to do. So we find this gap, and I think this has become a movement now, and a lot of things are happening. but I still feel it should all come together. And Kerala, you asked in the beginning also the workforce. Personally, I feel the movement to other countries, how can we really hold them up here and see a lot of things happening in the country, because this is one state where the literacy is very high, and whether we can do that, I think that's something for you to take forward.
Of course, I think Kerala can lead the way in industry, academia, linkages. I want to come to Aubrey, to you now. You represent a very interesting industry, creative industry. And how do you see work integrated models work in your industry? Have you seen examples? What you think can work at the national level and what can scale at Kerala level?
That's a very good question. Just one question. How many of us have gone through internship in our life? Anyone? High up, I want to see your hands here. It's a large audience. Hey, great. Give yourself a clap. You know, it'll keep us all awake at the stage. All right. No, I wanted to make sure that you're listening and you're able to hear this through this echo. Thank you for your response. Oh, we've had a very, very interesting journey. You know, we are in the creative economy, and I'm in God's own country, which is rich in creativity. You know, when you look at the arts that you have, the Mohiniyattam, you're rich in culture, you're rich in music. And I'm so glad that I'm here sitting in your midst. And I believe Kerala is a microcosm of what India will be as a macrocosm. And that's the experiment. I'm going to announce a few things here, so pay attention. And please spread this news wide, okay? So, by the way, I originate from Kerala. I'm a Kerala diaspora, born and brought up, origin in Kerala, born and brought up in Bombay, born, bred, buttered and jammed in Bombay, and now toasted and cheesed in Delhi NCR. So I've got a very national perspective, okay? Before we go out on the to touch upon your national point, 28 states and 8 union territories, I believe Kerala holds a great potential as a model for the nation, and that's what we are doing. We began to experiment with music education, completely disrupting it. Why music education? Because I believe it's the lowest hanging fruit among the various art forms. If I ask, and yesterday I did this, I don't want to do it here, 100% in the room will say, I love music. Nobody will say, I hate music. And then if you ask this question, how many of you tried learning an instrument and gave up? 98 to 99% will say, there you are. 98 to 99% will say, yes, I tried learning music, but I gave up. Maybe 1%. Yesterday it was 2%. So this is a national reality. And so what we did was we decided to disrupt this, and I'll share the connection with internship here. We went down to the grassroots level of schools. Schools were not willing to adopt it. Schools did not have a policy for music education. We had to go to the government and knock on the doors of the government. It took us 15 years to then bring about a change in policy. So there's a big role between A, policy making, that's the government, B, academia, C, industry, and of course, the most important constituent is the population, okay? The students, the workforce. So here is the thought I want to leave in the room. Imagine a musician, say, teaching or playing the violin or playing the keyboard or the piano, and online, using technology, digital platform, teaching a student in Canada music, how to play music, and at the same time connecting with an ad agency in Dubai and creating a tune for that ad film that is in the making, all while sitting in Kerala, all while living here. So you have an opportunity that is sans borders. It's music or creative economy that sans borders for Kerala to export its art across the world. We've had models where we've got teachers training, and let me just expand on this, and I'm going to come to internship in a short. To kickstart this model in Kerala, I have yesterday, and I'm announcing here today, we are launching 10,000 internships in creative economy, 10,000 internships to graduate and postgraduate students in this year. And to answer to Tom's statistics that he mentioned, 3 to 4% is the statistics in UK. The figure in India, Tom, is about 1 million graduate and postgraduate students in Kerala. That's translating to about 10 lakhs. We need to aim for about 30 to 40,000 internships per annum. This 10,000 is just a start. We aim to increase it to about 30 to 40,000 per annum. And for this, I've asked the Kerala government's help through its various institutions. We're tying up with universities, colleges, and schools. So this is the practical outworking of this project. Another point that Tom mentioned is skilling doesn't start and end with schools or college students, but it can go on through a lifetime. And you know, Jolie or job opportunities are lacking, and therefore here is the opportunity where we are actually giving a training for music education advisors, and there's 10,000 of such opportunities to train and equip them. Even if they are past their retirement age in a government job or any other job, they have an opportunity to be retrained. Kerala is a very creative state, and they can look at expanding that particular economy. So two things: internships and apprenticeships start early, and we're doing it and offering it to 10,000 graduate and postgraduate students from this year. But most important, internship and apprenticeship don't end with college students. Anyone beyond college can take the opportunity to be a music education advisor, get trained, get certified, and continue their life, even if they're past retirement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have only 5 minutes now, I have been told. I'm keeping all these audience from their lunch, so I would really request to be like lightning speed responses now. So I have one question from Tom, from you, Tom Joseph. So let's talk about students for who this entire program is designed. How do you see that work integrated learning models are really improving their confidence, employability, and employment skills? And what metrics prove that?
Of course, that's a very interesting question. In fact, the all context is basically underlining to one problem statement. How do you produce a timely relevant graduate? It's all about how do you make them learn by doing. This is what the apprenticeship system or so-called internship system trying to address. So the system is pretty new in India, not like any other markets like UK or Germany or even other European markets. Here, the primary focus is basically to acquire the primary skill set, not the reskilling or upskilling, because most of our kids are taking up the internship or apprenticeship-based courses for acquiring a primary skill set. The context is very clear. It's all about how do you make a pizza, and the core bread is same, and you have the complete flexibility to add any toppings based on the employers. You can customize based on the sectors. You can customize your pizza by adding the relevant skill set you need, and adding the relevant competencies, and what all they need from education, from the course. It's definitely adding confidence right from the beginning. They start working with the employees and the employer ecosystem, and rather than focusing on earn while you learn, we are focusing on learn by doing. That means the day one itself, the learning process starts. What exactly we are lacking here, having a robust assessment system in place. How do you assess the skill sets, or the kind of competencies you develop from the workplace, and how do you export the same into a formal degree or academic degree, a part of the vocational degree? This is what we are lacking here. See, if you are able to sort that issue, having a robust system in place and having a proper mentor system in place. See, since the system is very new in India, and we don't have the proper mentor-mentee system for the apprenticeship, and we don't have the so-called incentives from the government to motivate apprenticeship as a part of culture from any company, for that employees, as a part of culture, as a part of their primary agenda. They're busy, they're in their business, or busy recruiting from the school, the colleges and universities soon after they graduate the degree, but they are not looking at the larger problem. How do you create the future workforce? So if we are able to, fix these issues, how do we create a robust assessment system in place, and how do we create a proper mentor-mentee system? And definitely it's adding value to any students coming to this, this model right from the beginning compared to any other academic degree. And coming back to the previous statement, how do we, promote this as a part of culture, as a part of, the kind of attitude, and how do you encourage student to take, apprenticeship-based courses rather than going to the college 3 years or 4 years and earn a degree? How do you create this as a culture from the day one? This is what we are lacking as a part of the large ecosystem. And this is, this cannot be done by university or a number of universities. We need a kind of policy in place to, create a robust system for assessing and formally accepting that credit and formally recognizing what you're earning from the workplace is something great, and you will have some sort of, kind of privilege when you go to the workforce after your graduation. Or I'm creating opportunities for the students, doing the internship or apprenticeship with the same employer itself. Going back to my PISA statement, how do you create, very bespoke courses for an employer, for a sector, by adding the right ingredients, by embedding the right skill set, having a right competency framework in place, and that will, eventually solve our the problem statement for a long time. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom. I know, so this is like a lightning, last closing one statement, 15 seconds each. What is one thing that Kerala can do to become a leader in work-integrated learning models, its execution and capitalizing on the impact and creating a pathway for the rest of the country? What is one thing that Kerala can do? Just if we can have one statement from all of you. Yes. Each one of you. Oh.
Thank you. Let's talk about the money side of things, because it is all about the money at the end of the day and the investment that either employers are putting in or the government, or indeed what I call a co-investment model. It should be a partnership really between government and employers. I think when we look around the world, the reason why the UK, Germany, Switzerland, Scandinavian countries, I think, have very successful apprenticeship models is because policymakers took a difficult decision about the idea of saying that if you leave it just to the free market, employers will not individually invest to the level that is required. And the reason for that is because in a commodity labor market, every employer thinks that somebody else is doing the training and the skilling, and all they have to do is offer through the pay system a market rate to get the skill into the business. The challenge is what happens if that other employer or that other academic institution or practical institute is not doing the training. That's when you get a skill shortage. That's when you get bottlenecks. And actually that's bad for the economy because it holds the economy back. So I think if there's one idea I'd leave with you is the idea of sector-based levies, where employers in the UK, for example, it's on the very large employers, they pay 0.5% of the annual payroll into the national apprenticeship pot. It raises about £3.5 billion. That money is used to fund the off-the-job training. And in some cases, it's used to also subsidize the wages. I think these collective forms of investment are really, really important. And you know, as I say, when you look around the world and you see the more successful models of apprenticeship, they do have a universal financial mechanism attached to them. So that would be my takeaway for you.
Thank you very much. That was a brilliant, brilliant suggestion. I am being asked to close the session because we are way out of time. So I'm so sorry I won't be able to go over everyone. But thank you very much. I had so many questions, such a lively conversation that was going on. And I think we could have talked about so many things. Yes, okay.
Mission to be accomplished. I come from the creative economy, so I want to say this to represent my economy. We would like to see Kerala as the creative Silicon Valley of India and of the world. The creative Silicon Valley, if that's a one statement takeaway.
Of course. No, thank you very much. I hope we will be able to gather all the insights and convert it into a work integrated learning models and playbook. And I would end with one last statement. Every child deserves a classroom, and every youth deserves a workplace and a dignified livelihood. Thank you very much. Thank you all the panelists for joining this and staying longer for this conversation to end. We're so sorry for going a little over time. We started late, and I will not keep you from your lunch. Thank you so much, and I'll hand over to the host.